Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of From the District with Senator Suzanne Weber. Senator,
How are you?
I just if I was any better, it'd be a sin. How about
Isn't
you?
that wonderful? Yes, I'm extremely busy during the week, and now I'm home for the day. Did my virtual meetings, and it feels good to be home.
hmm Understandable. It was a busy week.
Yes,
What
did
did you
some
do?
did some really great things. Went to the Dairy Women's Dinner.
Oh, fun.
Uh, Also went to they had like a little get together for the aviation folks.
hmm
We went to that. Um, and I had a visit from the board of TBCC and got to visit with Clara Blazer, and she was elected or appointed the alternate dairy ambassador. So it was really nice to see her. It was really nice to connect with local people. Carol and Dan Luthold, congratulations. They got an award. Um,
Awesome.
just getting to talk to people from the district in Salem was really, really nice. I also got to be on a panel discussion for the Oregon Community Colleges Association with Rep. Lively and Rep. Ruiz to talk about the importance of community colleges in our area. And so that was very fulfilling. I also did two courtesies on the floor. One was for the Fisher Poets, and the other one was for the first woman captain on the Columbia, the second captain in the United States. Um, it was a lot of people in the Capitol this week for a lot of different reasons. And I think that, when you've got meetings every 15 minutes for a couple of hours every afternoon, you get to meet a lot of different groups, a lot of different people. And the other group that was there that was so nice to see was Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, very nice. Yes, I saw some pictures that Habitat posted of you and Representative Javity.
Yes. Yeah, it was really nice to be able to visit with um, the Tillamook representative and the folks from Columbia County also.
Awesome. They do a wonderful job. And I know in Tillamook, which is the only experience that I've had, is working with them. I was on their board for a period of time, and just wonderful people doing wonderful things, really doing the Lord's work. And um,
Yes,
it's really, especially, I know housing is a really important thing to you. And in my work in real estate, I actually was able to sell one of their houses one of their clients had decided to move away, and so I worked with them to sell one of their houses, and they were just absolutely wonderful. And I was able to look at the contract that they had drawn up for their client, and really was impressed of the terms that they were given. I mean, it's not a free house. I think it's really important for folks to realize it's not a free house. They actually have a mortgage, and they have payments to make. Obviously it's a very favorable rate, very
it
favorable
is.
no, but it's not a free house. I think that's a misnomer that some people, or a mistake that some people make sometimes.
Yes, and I did get to meet one of the people in Columbia County that is getting the newest house,
Wonderful.
and how excited she is to be able to have a place.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And also, like you said, it's for me during the session, after the after hour stuff is what's fun, because you get to talk to so many different people,
Yes.
whether it's folks from the lobby, or more importantly, if it's folks from home who are coming to town to celebrate. For example, you said the Dairy Women.
Oh,
It's Tillamook,
yes.
obviously, that's a huge thing.
Yes, and just Katie and I sat at a table at the dinner, And we were the only two people sitting at the table that didn't have a tiara on.
I feel like I need more. I feel like I need more information.
We got to sit at the table with all the princesses.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And they were just absolutely delightful.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like it was a busy week, and undoubtedly next week will be busy as well. But this coming week is particularly important because on the 17th is one of the first important legislative deadlines. It is required that for a bill to continue, for the most part, unless it's in the Revenue Committee, or if it's in the Rules Committee, or if it's in Ways and Means, but if it's in any other the other standing or joint committees, it has to have a work session scheduled. It has to have a vote scheduled. It doesn't have to have the vote by the 17th, but it has to be scheduled by the 17th. Maybe the vote's not until the 30th. But it has to be scheduled by the 17th. So we've been working really hard to try to get some of your bills scheduled.
Yes, we have. Because, if it hasn't taken its, like a fever, well, then you have to go to whatever committee it could possibly be assigned to, and you have to convince the committee chair that they need to hear that bill because it's a good bill. It could benefit a lot of people. And so you have to do a lot of talking with a lot of folks to make sure that they understand how important it is, what you feel needs to go forward in the part of a bill.
Right. And I think the really difficult thing is everybody thinks their bill is important.
Everybody does. Yes. And maybe a person doesn't have 6 or 7 or 8 bills. Maybe a person has 150 or 200 bills. Right. And so they really have their work cut out for them.
We've already made fun of Senator Brock Smith. We don't need to do it again. But he is one who has many a bill. But you tend to keep your numbers a little smaller, at least this go around, so that we can manage them and try to get them all hearings. It's just kind of the way it is. It's unlikely that every one of your bills will get a hearing, but certainly we're pushing as hard as we can.
Well, I think that all of these bills really need to be vetted also. They have to show that they really have a purpose, because all of them that come forward are going to change people's lives in a certain way.
Right.
And so you got to make sure that the consequences and the unintended consequences are going to be a benefit to people and not a detriment.
And I think it's really important to remember that when you have a bill introduced the first time, sometimes that bill isn't ready for prime time. So you'll introduce the bill, right, and another senator will come over and say, "Hey, I saw your bill. I don't really like it, but if it had this, this, and this, and this," and then a lobbyist will come over and say, my client is concerned because it's going to affect their business, but if you change it this, 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 and this, and it's okay to have an amendment or two to a bill, but when you're starting to get to a situation where you're going to have 6, 7, 8 amendments to get people on board, chances are that bill just isn't ready for prime time yet.
Right. So and we've seen a lot of it, that a lot of bills come back that were introduced in the last session, but they're being reintroduced in this session, and they look a little different.
Right. And so I think to all you freshman legislators out there who don't get your bill heard, live to fight another day. Yes. Bring it back. Listen to what your colleagues said, what the lobby said, what your constituents said, and make adjustments and bring it back next time. So that's just the way it works. And,
sometimes we can have public hearings and people will testify to ways that bill could be made better. And the chair and the committee will take that to heart, and there will be amendments that are submitted that actually make it better.
That does happen, and quite often it does happen. I think if it's 1 or 2 things that need to change, that's pretty common. But if you get in a situation where you're at a public hearing and it's clear that it's going to take 6, 7, 8 things for it to get it across the next line.
Right.
It sometimes is better to pull it back and say, look, I really appreciate the feedback. I'm not going to work this bill so hard this time around, but I am going to bring it back next year with all of the concerns that everybody brought up last time. I think it's a good thing. It's not a failure for a bill to not get across the finish line the very first time.
Yes. And even in the writing of the bills, it doesn't make it across the finish line the first time. There are some of them that require a lot of work.
Yeah, there's been a few times that I've in the past sent a draft idea that we wanted, and it comes back. I read it and say, no, that's not what we wanted, and it goes back, and it comes back. And I look at it, no, that's not what we wanted. And it sometimes it takes 3 or 4 or 5 back and forth with legislative council. And, you don't just walk down to legislative council very often. It's
right.
You do it and it comes back. So yeah, it's a process, and we're coming to the first deadline. Here in a number of weeks, we'll have the second deadline that it needs to pass the first chamber. So if it's a Senate bill, I need to go check and remind myself when that day is.
It's 22nd of something.
Yeah.
The 17th and the 22nd. Those are the two.
It must be the 22nd of. That must be the 22nd of April. It's my birthday. Lucky me.
Oh.
Quite the present.
Yeah.
Needs to pass by then, so it'll need to pass. If it's a Senate bill, it will need to have passed the first chamber and then head on over to the next chamber. So, well, we've talked about the process a little bit. How about we talk about some bills?
That's a good idea.
Well, we were talking about that. We said that the 17th, this coming Friday, we're recording this on the 10th, the evening of the 10th. So in a week is the deadline. We'd like to have 6 bills. We've talked about these a bit in previous episodes. Some bills that we really would like your help to get scheduled. So these are 6 bills that we'd like your help to get a public hearing and a work session scheduled for. So let's start with Senate Bill 639. This is having to do with funding of school resource officers. And I know when you were mayor of Tillamook, you had a lot to do with supporting school resource officers at Tillamook High School. So tell us about this bill.
Well, it's for a while we didn't have school resource officers. But then, we had a surge in shootings and school violence. And then we went back to looking at the fact that having a police officer or someone representing authority in that fashion in the schools was extremely important. It gave kids a way to have a method to be able to connect with officers if they were having problems. It gave a sense of security to all of the people that were in the building. And they became an integral part of what happens in the school because they are someone that the students can go to at any time if they're having a problem, and they can, be a resource for them. I think it just gives a feeling of safety and security to a lot of people. And it also helps kids get through probably what is the most difficult and important time in their lives, as far as being able to relate to people on a different level. What do you think? When we would get the money for the city to be able to have that resource office, we rejoiced because it was something that we could know that our children would be additionally cared for and safe in our schools.
So this bill would do two things that would really firm up the permanency of school resource officers. Because as you said, um, that was one of the things that went away in a lot of school districts. So one thing, it would require school districts to have a line item in their budget for school resource officers. And then second, it would also require the Department of Education to fund those school resource officers.
Right.
So that is that's taking away the objection from school districts saying we can't afford this.
Well, the other thing is we always had to apply for a grant.
Right.
And if you're applying for a grant, you're not always going to get it.
Right.
And so this guarantees that that position is going to be there.
Right.
It's important.
It is. And one of the things that struck me is it's certainly a safety issue. It's certainly helping kids along throughout their day and protecting kids. That's all true. But one of the things that kind of reminds me of is the Shop with a Cop program, and which is the program during Christmas time where kids will go with police officers to the store and they'll buy them Christmas presents. And the purpose of that is to give these kids, not only give them a good Christmas, but give them a positive interaction with law enforcement. Because a lot of these kids, the first and most regular time that they have an interaction with police officers is when those police officers are coming in and putting their parents in handcuffs and taking them out for some sort of drug charge or abuse charge or something like that. And so they see, every time they see a cop from that time on, they've got a bad attitude toward that cop, and understandably so.
It builds trust and it relieves anxiety.
Right. So when these school resource officers are in school and they're joking around with the kids and they're having a good time as they're going through the halls, those kids have a positive view of what law enforcement is. I remember, for all its lack of success perhaps in the DARE program, I remember in Tillamook school districts when Officer Lane came in, when Lane Hendrickson was coming into the schools, he was just so friendly and kind, and I based my first view, because it was first grade, I think. I based my first view of law enforcement off of Officer Lane Hendrickson, and that was a real positive view. A lot of these kids don't have that first positive view of law enforcement that I was so fortunate to have. So,
well, we would have in first grade, we'd have the policemen come in, to talk to them about bicycle safety or some kind of safety, to tell them, he wanted them to, be careful and be safe. And by the time he would leave, he was getting hugs and pats on the back, and they were just so happy.
Yep. It's a good bill, should pass, right?
Yes.
So that is Senate Bill 639, currently in the Senate Committee on Education. We've been doing a lot with the Education Committee, but we need more. So Senator Michael Dembro is the chair of the Senate Committee on Education. Encourage you to reach out and ask him to schedule a work session for Senate Bill 639.
He is also on the Education Ways and Means Committee with myself. And, that's another committee that would really be expeditious to reach out to, is because they're listening to all of the money factors that are coming along with education. And this is one of them.
Right.
And we, when that comes up, there will be an opportunity for testimony to be presented on it. And so, it would be good to pay attention to that too.
Right. And it's another opportunity that, hey, if you don't think this is ready for prime time, come and give your testimony on ways you think it could be better. And if it doesn't make it through the go round this time, Senator, I'm sure you'll look at bringing it back in subsequent sessions.
Yes.
Senate, so 665.
665. Now, I will tell you that this is not one that I have read all the way through.
Well, Senator, you are in luck. It is precisely 6 lines long. So I will read it.
Okay, read that one.
In managing state forest lands as described in ORS 530.050, so the management, that's the Oregon revised statute that discusses how state forest lands must be managed. The state foresters shall use active management designed to achieve and maintain low forest fuel load levels on the forest lands in order to promote forest health values and the control of wildfire risks. So, what Senate Bill 665 does is instructs the state forester to actually cut down trees or
Yes.
to thin or to clean out brush or debris in state forest lands to actually manage them to avoid any sort of wildfires. It's
Yes, and
this
I
is one
will
of those-
tell you that our foresters are prepared to be able to do this. When I toured the Clatsop Forest, I was amazed at how our foresters use the science of forestry to be able to make sure that our forests stay healthy, that the logging that we do is appropriate, how you do it, whether you do it with thinning or whether you do it with clear cuts. They understand all of this, and I think it is a good bill that would be supported by our forestry employees also.
right. And this is it's another one of those bills that, why do we have to have a bill for this? This is just common sense.
But one bill might lead to another bill, and we have had all kinds of discussions recently concerning the amount of timber that should be able to be cut in our forests. And
Right.
we've got a governor who wants 35,000 houses built. What are we going to use to build those houses? You've heard me say this before. If we don't have our own resources to be able to build those houses, where are we going to get them from? Canada, Georgia. It doesn't make any sense. And especially when you're looking at the amount of carbon that is sequestered in the trees that we have in the forest. The younger trees are sequestering more. And trees are a crop, just like corn. It comes ripe. It needs to be harvested.
And I think that's all true. And I think one thing that we need to think about also is when trees have fallen down and they have rotted. Now, certainly that you have to be careful of habitat, and I think that's provided for throughout statute and throughout rule. But to make sure that our forests aren't going to burn down every year,
we need that debris out of the forest floor.
Right. So that is Senate Bill 665.
Yes.
It is currently in the Senate Committee for Natural Resources. The chair of that is Senator Jeff Golden. So encourage you to reach out to Senator Golden and ask him to schedule a work session for Senate Bill 665 and make sure he does that by this Friday. Right. Please do that. All right. Next bill is going to be Senate Bill 933. And what this bill does, Senate Bill 933, it prohibits the establishing of tolls on Interstate 205 and Interstate 5. Now, it's interesting, Senator.
We passed that tolling. I did not pass that tolling.
Yeah.
That tolling passed in the last session. And it was a result of the majority being in favor of it. But this is not a good bill. This is not something, that was not a good bill. This is a good bill that will stop tolling. And, they talk about 205 and how it's 205 that is going to be building. And of course, we're going to be getting help from Washington in what form we don't really know. But that has far-reaching consequences. Number one is part of Multnomah County that uses that road is in our district. That is counted as in District 16. But the other thing is we provide food for a lot of different areas, and we provide it for Washington. We have got to, anything that comes out of Tillamook has to come on a truck. And if it's on a truck, it's going to be on a highway, and that is going to increase the cost of being able to ship the goods and service goods that come out of here, whether it's our seafood or whether of course, our cheese and ice cream. But it's going to make it far more expensive.
Right.
It's going to make it far more expensive for our providers to be able to put that on the highway. And for the people in the grocery store, when they want crab, well, it might be more than $3 or $3.50 a pound like it is right now. The use of the roads for us is extremely important. And tolling is something that is going to impact our whole area.
Really interesting. This isn't a Republican just talking about Republican things.
No.
This bill is, quite honestly, primarily sponsored by Democrats. Democrats from that Clackamas County, because it's 405, 205 and
205.
5. So you have Clackamas County there on the southern end, but you've got Senator Meek was looks like the chief sponsor, but you also have Senator Bonham, Republican, from the Dalles. You've got Representative Neron, one of the more liberal members of the House, Representative Ruiz, probably even a more liberal member of the House. Senator Woods, a more liberal member of the Senate. Senator Hansel, an Eastern Oregon Republican. It really just runs the gamut of supporters.
Well, the consequences are far-reaching.
Right.
If we allow tolling in one area, what other area, can that impact?
Right.
We have other bridges that need replacing. How is that going to impact other regions?
Right. So that is Senate Bill 933, currently sitting in the Joint Committee on Transportation. It's a joint committee, so it has a chair from the Senate side and a chair from the House side. The chair from the Senate side is Senator Chris Gorsuch, and the chair from the House side is Representative Susan McLean. So encourage you to reach out politely to Senator Gorsuch and Representative McLean and ask that they schedule a work session on Senate Bill 933 to prevent any tolling on I-205 and I-5. So this next bill, Senate Bill 1025, this is one of those bills that here earlier this week, let's just say, our rest in peace, your inbox.
It was amazing because we sat down to discuss a capital construction list, and it was like lightning hit our computers because all of a sudden there was 100, 300, 500, 800 emails that just came in amazingly fast.
I had to take my watch off. I have a smartwatch, and every time I get an email, my wrist vibrates. My wrist was going numb. So I had to take my smartwatch off because it was just, I couldn't sit and read anything. It was, anyway, Senate Bill 1025, actually a very important bill. This would counteract some actions by DEQ, around wastewater. And unfortunately, one of the rules that DEQ is requiring now is that wastewater be treated like substantially more pure than drinking water, even.
Right.
And it really is a threat to fishing
It's
industries.
a threat to all of our seafood processors all up and down the coast. Now, you might say, well, they process seafood in California. Why aren't we hearing about it there? Well, most of the seafood processors in California have their wastewater run through a municipal sewer plant. And they have made it so that that can work well. But as we have discussed in Coastal Caucus several times, we don't have wastewater systems in Oregon that have that capacity. Some may, but many do not have the capacity to be able to handle that waste.
Right. So this bill is sponsored by yourself and Senator Brock Smith. What this
Yes.
bill would do would tie the requirements of wastewater purity to essentially what the EPA would require, as opposed to what, instead of DEQ, which is looking to write rule that would really, really, really hurt our fishing industry on the coast.
It would.
And it really just doesn't make any sense what DEQ is doing. It's illogical.
We had a meeting with them earlier in the week with the brand new head of DEQ. And she seems to be really willing to be able to converse on this and meet. And we sent her a whole list of questions that we had drawn up concerning wastewater and the DEQ. And we had hoped to have the answers to that by Thursday, but it wasn't forthcoming. And so we're hoping that we have them by the next Thursday for our Coastal Caucus meeting, so that we as a group can once again discuss the answers to some of these pertinent questions that are definitely going to have an effect on our seafood industry.
Right. And for those of you who don't know what the Coastal Caucus is, the Coastal Caucus is a bicameral, bipartisan group of legislators, all the legislators whose districts touch the coast. You have have some folks who just have a little sliver of the coast, and some who have their entire districts on the coast.
Mm-hmm. From California all the way up along the Columbia.
Right. Right now, the makeup is mostly Republican. You only have one Democrat in Representative David Gomberg, but that's not always been the case. Just last year, there were 3 Democrats, I believe. 3? Or were there 2?
No, there were 2.
There were 2, and in the past, it's been 3 or 4. So,
yes.
And I think it's really a testament to the Coastal Caucus in that, even though the partisan makeup has changed, really what you do and your policy stances haven't changed.
Right. And David Gomberg is the chair of the Coastal Caucus. Right. And so, I think that says a lot for his willingness and ability to be able to work together with the people all along the coast too. Right.
Right. And one of the rules of the Coastal Caucus is if you guys don't agree 100%, you don't act.
Exactly.
So
it's like that old Get Smart movie where the cone of silence comes down. We come to an agreement.
Yes.
And that's what happens.
There must be an agreement. So the Coastal Caucus, if all members don't agree, now sometimes most of the members will agree, and they'll go off and write a letter together, but it won't be on Coastal Caucus letterhead. It won't be the Coastal Caucus doing it. It's just a group of legislators who have gone and done it. But if they don't all agree, when they all agree on it, letters can be sent on Coastal Caucus letterhead. Coastal Caucus staff can arrange for it. It really is impressive how much you guys do given the fact that you aren't all of the same party, and the Republicans have a very large majority on the caucus this time,
Right.
but you still did a whole lot when it was more divided evenly. So it's definitely one, I think, of the most effective.
It's a great organization.
Yeah, it's one of the most effective political sub-organizations.
And I don't think I've told you this, but we have a new caucus also in the legislature, and it's the Water Caucus.
I was going to hope you say the Cookie Caucus, because that's a thing too.
There is the Cookie Caucus too. I think it's Tuesdays that cookies are available someplace in the building.
No, the Water Caucus is more important. So yes.
Yes, and we had a really in-depth, well, it's only 1 hour, but conversation about issues concerning water that are coming to the forefront rapidly, especially in protecting our municipal water supplies.
Very
and the ability to increase housing. You can't increase housing in an area unless your water is secure to be able to, supply the people that are going to be living there. So.
Right. All right. So that a little digression there, but Senate Bill 1025, that is the bill we were talking about tying wastewater purity levels to what the EPA says, as opposed to DEQ's rather draconian rules. That is currently sitting in the Senate Committee on Energy and Environment, and that's chaired by Senator Janine Solomon. So please do reach out to Senator Solomon and ask her to schedule a public hearing and a work session for Senate Bill 1025. And then we have Senate Bill 435, going on the housing side. Really interesting idea, as you know. Real estate
tax credit for renters.
Yeah, tax credit for renters. What this would do is up to $5,000. Renters could get tax credits for the amount of money they pay in rent.
Yes.
Very interesting idea for lowering the cost of renting an entirely different way.
Well, you have to look at the cost of rent, especially on the coast.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the amount of people that we have that are in the service industry. And when they are making their money, because a lot of their wages are dependent upon tourism. And this, I think, would really incentivize people staying and renting, and also opening up new rentals, especially with the number of short-term rentals that we have on the coast. Right. And we're always looking at the increase in rent for folks as being something that they have to deal with on a regular basis. And we're also looking at the fact that mortgage, is deductible in our mortgage interest is deductible. This would give someone who rents a leg up.
Right. And I think it's important to remember that when we're talking about tax deductions, it does, someone needs to actually itemize their deductions to utilize a deduction. And many people do that, but the lowest income folks tend to take a standard deduction. Tax credits anybody can take. Right. It automatically gives you money back off your taxes. So I think it's a way that anybody of any income, because you don't just rent because you can't buy a house. Sometimes there are logistical reasons or other reasons why you would prefer to rent. So this is a really interesting way of lowering the cost of housing of a different way. So kudos to you on that. So that bill is currently in the Senate Committee on Housing and Development. That's chaired by Senator Casey Jama. So I encourage you to reach out to Senator Jama and ask him to schedule a work session for Senate Bill 435. Well, we have those are the bills that today we want to encourage folks to reach out to have work session scheduled, but we do have one bill that we've talked about that we do have a work session scheduled, and that is Senate Bill 200. We talked about earlier about the salvage chief, right?
Yes, the salvage chief. And we talked about that last time, didn't we?
I don't think it was last time. I think it was a few times. It was a while ago when
Or is it something that we just have a continuing discussion on the salvage?
Well,
chief?
I think it was up in February. The salvage chief was up in February for a public hearing, so we probably talked about it then. But the salvage chief it's a salvage vessel, and it is much easier and cheaper to repair one of these vessels than it is to buy a new one.
Yes.
But what Senate Bill 200 would do, and I'm bringing it up right now to make sure I get the right numbers, the right amounts, that it would appropriate about $2 million for hull repairs, engine and fire pump upgrades, and then some emergency communications upgrades. It's an incredibly important vessel, and it just makes a heck of a lot more sense to repair what we have than go and buy a new one. So this has had its public hearing. It's up for a work session on the 14th. So that is Tuesday the 14th. And
please tell us the name of the committee, because I think this is such an interesting committee name.
I'm trying to see if there's a way to turn it into a acronym.
Can it be an acronym?
No.
Because it's got veterans, and it's got government, and it's got...
Yeah, it's the Senate Committee on Veterans, Emergency Management, Federal and World Affairs.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, so this is having a public hearing, so we'd encourage you to reach out to all of the members of the Senate Committee on Veterans, Emergency Management, Federal and World Affairs. There's not very many of them. There's only 5. Senator James Manning, Senator Kim Thatcher, Senator Chris Gorsuch, Senator Dennis Lithicum, and Senator Aaron Woods. Reach out to them, encourage them to vote yes on Senate Bill 200. This will not be the last word on this bill. It does have a subsequent referral, so after it passes, God willing, this committee, it'll then go on to the Joint Committee on Ways and Means. Yeah.
Right.
So it's gonna.
We won't know the disposition of that until just before the session ends. That's something else that people need to remember, is that we can be talking about all these things that are costing money, and we can hope that some of them are going to go forward and some of them are maybe going to die, but it's all going to be dependent on the last hurdle is Ways and Means.
Right. So these other committees, for example, the Committee on Veterans and Federal and whatever, all that committee is a policy committee. So the question that they're asking right now essentially is, should this be done? Should this be done? Is this a good policy to do this?
I think that the thing that I hope they look at is the investment, if that would have to be replaced. Look at the good work it's done. Look at the good work it can do. It has to have some repairs, because everything needs to have repairs at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are right here on the coast, and we have a lot of different size vessels that need work and help. And this is good. This is something that we need to encourage the support for.
So just as this committee that is in now is a policy committee making the decision, is it a good idea to do this? It then goes to Ways and Means, which is an appropriation committee, which is saying, can we afford it? Yes. So is it a financial priority for us when weighed against all of the other priorities that we have? So that's what's being voted on first, but it has to go through this first policy committee.
Yeah. See, how about if we talk about the drink tax?
Oh, it just makes me sad.
We do this all the time. Every session. 3312.
HB 3312. It seems, I believe this has gone at least the last two sessions.
Well,
maybe more.
yeah.
So this bill would raise the tax on beer and cider 1,200%, and it would raise the price on wine 500%.
500%.
Do you guys not have enough money?
I don't.
Why do you tax everything that's fun?
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, you're right. That is another fun tax.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, I think the question is, I mean, this has to be, we're not short of cash.
This is grasping at straws.
We're not shorting cash.
And the other thing is that it is, some people's effort to be able to point out the fact that maybe there is an excess of those things being used. And quite possibly this could be a limit. But I don't know if that's necessarily.
Yeah, I would tend to say that when you have an addiction, you will do whatever it takes to feed your addiction. And if it means you've got to spend all the money you have and all the money you can steal, you're going to feed your addiction. What this is going to do is make it so you and me, who like to go down to the Pelican and have a couple of beers, it's just going to raise the price.
Yes, it is.
Substantially. And when you look at your district that has so many awesome microbrews, from Pelican to Bowie to Astoria Brewing, to not to mention the spirits.
We have distilleries.
Yes. You've got distilleries. You've got DeGard Brewing. And so you've got even some of these nano brewings at places that are just getting started. It's
very discouraging for them to always be hit with this.
Yeah. And it's happening every time. I look at Cannon Beach Distillery. They just couldn't take it anymore. They just picked up and moved to Colorado because they couldn't handle the draconian tax structure on spirits in Oregon. They couldn't do it. And I went to their tasting room a couple of times, and it's just an incredible product. And it was so disappointing when they closed, not because they couldn't sell their product, because they always could. When they announced a tasting or a release, I mean, there was a line out the door. And it was just really sad. And it's totally unnecessary. Oregon is not short of money. We have a $5,800 a person kicker going out the door the next year. It's just, quite frankly, pretty asinine, if you ask me. Which you did.
I agree with you.
But
yeah.
So that's HB 3312. Go ahead and reach out to your the committee members, to the chair. And I'm sorry, I need to bring out where the heck that is.
Yeah,
was sent.
I don't remember which
committee. You took it out of order. The House Committee on Behavioral Health and Healthcare. That is chaired by Representative Rob Nouse. But you can go ahead, Representative Javity in District 32 in your district. He's a member of that committee. Certainly reach out to the members of that committee and to Chair Nouse. Say, please don't let this go anywhere. It's not going to accomplish what it means to accomplish, and it's just going to make things harder for everybody. So,
yeah.
Another bill on Suzanne's list of bad bills is Senate Bill 854, which is going to require every district to establish a written plan for establishing a climate change instruction program for grades K through 12.
Right, and if the school district does not do this, it will be punished by having its success money, student success money taken away from them. Well, who is that hurting? The kids. And
Well,
the other thing is, in June of 22, the state adopted the science curriculum for kindergarten through high school, and all of the things that are important to determining whether we have climate change or not are in that curriculum.
right. So this is just massively expanding, almost turning it into its own subject.
Yes. And the thing that worries me about this is, at this point in time, we have a lot of our students who have lived through COVID and are extremely anxious about things that are happening around us, especially, well, regarding health, but regarding other things and that are also impactful. And I think that this would increase their anxiety. We don't have enough mental health providers currently to be able to help our children in our schools. I think that this would add another whole level of angst that is unnecessary. And yes, I have had teachers say, well, we don't really have time. This is really good because we don't really have time to teach science because we're so busy teaching reading and math and writing. Well, if you don't have time, how are you going to fit this curriculum in? How are you going to be able to bring all of this science into teaching reading and math? Are you going to be able to coordinate those, subject areas and I think it just adds a whole another level of things that teachers are required to do that are probably not all that necessary.
Right. Well,
maybe I'm being a Scrooge on this.
no, I think it's perfectly reasonable. I think it's perfectly reasonable that you have a K through 12 science curriculum, and that some sort of climate study about and meteorological study is involved in that curriculum. That makes sense. But to have an entire other curriculum around it.
Climate change is addressed in every grade level, whether it's water or wildfire or all of this. I had someone because I was a little busy get me the basic curriculum so that I could see if these things were being addressed in the curriculum that was just adopted in June. And yes, they are. Right. So, and I understand how young people can be very passionate about this. I think that we're just overloading another curriculum requirement onto the schools that we can't necessarily, without more time in the day, be able to fulfill.
Right. I think that's been a tough one because there are often some really good, well-meaning policies, bills that come up saying that the schools shall shall have this curriculum in, and we'll make sure we teach this, and they'll make sure they teach this, and they make sure that they teach this, and schools can't do everything.
We've already required that they teach civics, and this year we came on the bill to financial learning and planning, and so once again we're requiring something else. And yes, our kids do need an education concerning finance and future planning. And they do need an education in civics. But here's one more thing: that are we going to be able to accomplish this?
Right. Last few years in the House, I remember Representative Wright, who also is a retired educator, he would vote on policies that he said, yeah, kids should know this, but he'd vote no on it because he would just keep saying,
Yeah.
like, schools can't fix everything.
Right.
Schools are not they're not the system that's going to solve Western civilization. You can't expect every teacher to and the school district to fix every problem with your kids. You got to do some of this yourself. I mean, maybe we need to make sure that I'm going to make sure my kids know how to balance a checkbook. We can't expect that our schools are going to have to teach kids common sense and reason
right.
and basic life skills. I mean, that some of this has to come from home.
Yeah.
So that's Senate Bill 854 to require comprehensive climate. Every district come up with a comprehensive climate change curriculum. Encouraging you to reach out to the committee that it is currently in, and that is that's a Senate Committee on Education. I didn't even look at that. So that is Senator Michael Dembro, Vice Chair Suzanne Weber.
Yeah.
And I know, Suzanne, you'll be encouraging the chair not to take this up, and will be against it if it does come up. But do reach out to Chair Dembro, Senator Michael Dembro, and encourage him to not take this up. So, Senator, I think that's the bills we've got to talk about today. That's the calendar and the stuff. Anything go to the order?
I just can hardly wait for next week to start. It's an adventure every single day. And I have some carries next week, and I think I have maybe a remonstrance coming.
Testimony too. You'll be doing some testimony.
Yeah. And so I think I have a lot of opportunities to be able to speak to things that I'm passionate about, and I think that the people in my district are passionate about also.
Awesome. Well, Senator, let's call it a night. It's been as always, great talking to you, and
I appreciate your doing this so much. Thank you.
Oh, it's fun. Highlight of my week. I also live a very boring life, so there you go. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a great week.
Oh, don't forget, this may be the last time that we have to turn our clocks.
I have heard that so many damn times. I will believe it when I see it. You know what?
Notice I have a smile on my face.
Every time, twice a year, someone introduces a bill in Congress to do this. Twice a year, it almost gets there. And twice a year, it's a giant disappointment.
Yes.
It's like the end of most Oregon legislative sessions.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Senator. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next time.